Hello, everybody, and welcome to tonight's show. I'm your host, Zach Drew. This is going to be a very important show for everyone to watch, and it's going to be a show that by the end, I think that you're going to want to share it with your other friends and family. We're going to be painting a clear picture of what's to come. It's going to be very prophetic. See, what people don't understand is that there is a quiet war happening right now over the future of money. Countries are building systems designed to bypass the US dollar. This is huge. This isn't one of those abstract things that's gonna, it's happening over there. This is going to affect every aspect of your life, and it's going to affect the entire globe. Central banks are preparing digital currencies that could give governments unprecedented control over financial transactions. And at the same time, the world is racing to build a technological infrastructure that will require enormous amounts of energy, and both of these are connected. I'm going to be showing you how. Because this last one, it's going to require enormous amounts of one critical metal. Tonight, we're going to connect the dots, because once you start connecting these dots, we're going to do it for you. The future becomes very clear. The content tonight is going to affect every single person watching this program. We're not talking about politics tonight, not culture wars, not even elections. We're talking about money, your savings, your retirement, your future. And if you have been watching this show for a while, you know something. We have talked about this for years. We have talked about the Federal Reserve. We talked about the global dollar system, digital currencies, the possibility of a financial reset. And a lot of people throughout the country, they say, oh, that's all conspiracy talk. Well, something interesting is happening. The things that were dismissed as conspiracy theories are now openly being discussed and implemented by central banks and governments all over the world. And I feel like people aren't talking about it. I feel like it's one of those type of scenarios where it's like people didn't believe Noah that a flood was going to come because it had never rained before, right? And I'm not saying that the torrential rains are pouring right now, but it has begun to rain. And over the last few weeks, the developments have accelerated. Tonight, we're going to be connecting two major stories, but we're going to be talking about the two stories, but it's what comes from those two stories that is going to paint a clear picture of what's coming. Story number one, countries around the world are building financial systems designed to bypass the US dollar. Story number two, governments are preparing to launch digital currencies controlled directly by central banks. Now, if those two movements collide, and they will, you are looking at a transformation of the financial system that would truly pale in comparison to the creation of the Bretton Woods system after World War II. This is not abstract economics. This affects everything, your grocery bill, your mortgage, your job, your savings, and that is just scratching the surface, so buckle up. Because once you see the big picture, you cannot unsee it. And tonight we're going to walk through several pieces of this puzzle. There are 7 segments of today's show. You're going to want to stick around for segment 5, 6, and 7. But Andrew, go ahead and put it up on the screen. Segment 1, the dollar system, how the U.S. became the center of global finance. 2, SWIFT, the system that controls global banking. 3, BRICS, the global push to bypass the dollar. 4, CBDCs, government, digital money, and financial control. You've got to stick around for the next 3. The 4th industrial revolution, this ties it all together. AI, energy, and global infrastructure. 6, silver, the critical metal behind the technological future. And 7, preparing for uncertainty, lessons from history. And then we are going to end, obviously, with a biblical perspective. in times of this radical global change that we are all going to see if the Lord blesses us with another 10 to 15 years. And I think it's going to be sooner than that. So let us begin with segment 1, how the US dollar became the center of global finance. So after World War II, the United States was the economic powerhouse of the planet. Okay, half of the world's industrial production was happening inside of the United States. American factories built the machines. American companies produced the goods. American money rebuilt Europe. In 1944, world leaders met at the Bretton Woods Conference. They built the global financial system around one thing: the United States dollar. The dollar became the center of international trade. Okay, oil was priced in dollars, commodities were priced in dollars, global reserves were held in dollars. If you wanted to participate in global trade, you needed access to dollars. That system created enormous power. That is why we are what we are today. When the entire world needs your currency, your country sits at the center of global finance. Segment 2, put on the screen, Andrew. SWIFT, the system that controls global banking. Now, there is another piece. I'm going point by point by point. We're going to tie it all together. There is another piece of infrastructure that surprisingly most people aren't very familiar with, or some have never even heard of it. It's called SWIFT, S-W-I-F-T. SWIFT stands for Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication. SWIFT is not a bank. SWIFT is the communication network. This is how the whole world works. It is the communication network banks use to send financial messages to each other. Think of it as the internet for global banking. So when a bank in Germany sends money to a bank in Brazil, the message travels through SWIFT. Over 11,000 banks use it worldwide. And there are thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of transactions that take place on the SWIFT network every single day. And here's the key point. Because SWIFT sits inside the Western financial system, the United States holds enormous influence over it. We essentially control it. If the US wants to punish a country economically, removing them from SWIFT is how to do it. That is what's devastating to them. It cuts them off from the global financial system. Segment 3, BRICS, the global push to bypass the dollar. Now imagine you are China or Russia watching this system. You see the United States controlling the reserve currency, the banking infrastructure, the sanction system. You might start asking a question. What if we didn't need the dollar anymore? That singular question is driving the coalition that I'm hoping that you are familiar with, called BRICS. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And there's several nations that have joined this coalition. But together, these nations, just those, represent billions of people and massive economic resources. And for years, they have discussed creating financial systems that operate outside of the dollar. And recently, those conversations have accelerated. They are exploring systems that allow them to trade directly with each other, totally outside of SWIFT. Oil from Russia to India, manufacturing goods from China to Brazil, all without touching the dollar. All without touching the dollar. Now we're going to enter in segment 4. These might seem unrelated, they're all connected. CBDCs, government, digital money, and financial control. Now here's where the second story comes in. Central bank digital currency. CBDC stands for central bank digital currency. A CBDC is a digital version of national money issued directly by the central bank. Instead of physical cash, money exists inside a centralized digital ledger. Like, think blockchain technology, same technology that cryptocurrency runs on. Supporters say this makes payments faster. They say it makes it more efficient. Critics, like myself, we raise a different concern: control. Because digital currencies controlled by governments could, I don't want to even say theoretically, they would be able to freeze accounts, restrict any type of spending that they want. Financial surveillance, absolutely. Now again, supporters say these concerns are exaggerated. I don't think so. But once the technology exists, the possibilities exist. Okay. Now, let us move to segment number 5. The fourth industrial revolution, AI, energy, and global infrastructure. This is a big one. For the last 200 years, every major change in society came when we discovered a new source of energy. Okay? The world changed when we discovered steam, then coal. Then it changed again when we discovered the possibilities that could take place with oil, then electricity, then computers. But now we are entering something entirely new, and that is the fourth industrial revolution, where artificial intelligence, robotics, smart devices, and even quantum computing will run nearly every aspect of life. And here's the part that most people have not been told. This new world will require more energy than anything the human race has ever built. Even if they accomplish about 25 to 30% of their goals, it will be more energy demands than ever before in all of human history. Not double, not triple. We are talking about energy demands beyond anything we have the ability to even provide right now. So what's going to happen? And then we enter in the global brain concept, right? There are major figures in technology. I've talked about this man several times on the program, Masayoshi Son, right? Founder of SoftBank, one of the richest investors alive, who says in our lifetime, actually a part of our team when I worked for True News, we were sitting in front of him in Barcelona, Spain, who says within our lifetime, the world will have 1 trillion connected devices. Connected devices, relaying data and sending it to a global brain. Phones, cameras, drones, smart appliances, sensors in cars, roads, farms, factories, hospitals, wearable devices, everywhere, wherever devices are all over you, all over our body, even chips inside the body, all connected, all listening, all watching, all feeding data into one AI system, a global brain, a term that they created, not me. Think of it like this. This doesn't sound wild. I'm telling you, it's going to come. It's coming. Your refrigerator reports what you eat. Your car reports where you go. That's kind of already happening. Your thermostat, reports how much heat you use. Your watch reports your heart rate, your sleep, steps, your stress levels. Your phone just reports everything else, and it never turns off. It never turns off. And every one of these devices need energy. They all need electricity, internet bandwidth, data storage, cooling systems to keep the computers from burning up. Just the data centers that run AI already use as much electricity as entire nations. Right now, we are barely supporting the beginning of this system. I hope I'm not boring you. To support a world with 1 trillion devices constantly connected, the world would need hundreds of new power plants everywhere, massive new electrical grids, entire rivers diverted for cooling water, new mines to dig up needed minerals, new national energy policies. This isn't speculation. This is where the world is already moving, and the public has not been informed. But there is one metal at the center of this entire technological revolution that almost nobody is talking about. Silver. Silver. And for thousands of years, gold and silver were just primarily money. Yes, they had some decorative uses. Yes, they were used, for jewelry. But in terms of industrial necessity, very little, especially gold. Gold holds almost no utility. You can't really utilize gold. Gold mostly just sits in vaults. Silver was similar for most of human history until the era that we are now entering into. Because everything is about ready to change in a very dramatic way. Because silver is not just a precious metal. Silver also happens to be the most electrically conductive metal on Earth. Silver is the fastest conductor of electricity known to man. Which means if you are going to build a world filled with AI systems, quantum computers, smart devices, sensors everywhere, massive server farms, electric vehicles, solar grids, the list, advanced robotics, you need one thing in enormous quantities: silver. Because every circuit, every chip, every solar panel, every high-end electrical connection needs silver. And the push toward renewable energy makes this even more dramatic. Solar panels alone are becoming one of the largest consumers of silver on Earth. And the greener the world tries to go, the more silver the world burns. And here's the problem. We don't have much of it left. Because unlike gold, which is mostly stored and recycled, silver gets used and destroyed in industrial processes. And here's something most people don't realize. More than 90% of all the gold ever mined in human history still exists today. But a huge percentage of the silver mined has already been consumed by industry. Gone. Buried in landfills. We discard the tech, right? Inside old electronics, lost to history. Tiny amounts go into electronics. Phones, medical devices, military systems. And once it's used in those products, it is usually never recovered. It ends up in landfills, gone. For decades, the world has been quietly burning through silver, while most people thought of it only as coins and jewelry. But if this fourth industrial revolution actually unfolds the way the technologists are describing, if the world really does move toward 1 trillion connected devices, if it really does move towards massive AI data centers and massive, infrastructure everywhere, quantum computing networks, then the demand for silver could explode beyond anything we have ever seen in human history. And here's the shocking part, as if none of this was already shocking, of what you can see, what's going to happen in the world. Geologists and I guess you would call them mining analysts have been warning about this for years. The world is not discovering giant new silver deposits. In fact, many experts believe we are approaching peak silver production, which means, golly, I just feel like I'm up here on a wall, just studying what's happening in the world and seeing what's coming. Because if any of these things, if 25 to 30% of these things come, and these people are right, this, and all coming at the same time, means at the exact moment that the world needs more silver than ever before, we may actually be running out of it. Think about it. The entire infrastructure of the coming technological world may depend on the one metal that is quietly disappearing. Now combine that with something else we talked about earlier. If the global financial, I'm putting a bow on it, if the global financial system begins shifting, if the dollar faces pressure, if governments move toward digital currencies, history shows that people start looking toward real assets outside of the system. And for thousands of years, one of those assets has been silver. And if you watch other shows, maybe similar to mine, this is the point where they will plug where to buy silver so they can get a big, massive cut of it. I'm not doing that. I'm telling you because I love you guys. And I want you guys to be prepared for the storm that's coming. And there's many different things that you can divest from and invest into. And I also have to say it so that I don't get in trouble. I am not a financial advisor. All right? But historically, when something becomes both rare and essential, the price does not move slowly. It can move violently. And silver today is priced like a metal with almost no importance. Yet in a world powered by electricity, data, AI, and advanced technology, silver suddenly has real industrial utility. Not theoretical, real. Which means if the technological future they are building actually materializes, and I went through all of the prophetic scriptures about how I believe that there are many end times prophecies that cannot be fulfilled yet, because the system in which they could be fulfilled doesn't exist yet, hasn't finished. They're building it right now. There are many scriptures that will be fulfilled with the technology of the fourth industrial revolution. And if the monetary system begins shifting at the same time, and it is going to, silver could go absolutely bonkers. And almost no one's talking about it, right? Like they're not tying all the pieces together. I want to talk about just for a second quantum computing. Because most people think quantum computing just means faster computers. It doesn't. Quantum computers require extremely cold temperatures, constant cooling, and enormous electrical support. One quantum computing center can require more power than an entire city. So combine AI, data centers, smart devices, quantum computing, the energy demands absolutely explode. Segment 7, preparing for uncertainty, lessons from history. Now step back and look at what is happening. Countries building alternatives to the dollar, governments developing digital currencies, technology transforming the infrastructure of global finance. You can see the outlines of a new system forming. The timeline is unclear, but the direction is not. Write that down. The timeline is unclear. The direction for all of this isn't. Once again, I'm not a financial advisor, but history teaches us something. When financial systems experience instability, people tend to look toward hard assets, things like gold, silver, land, tangible goods, right? I'm not telling you what to do, but historically, precious metals have been used as stores of value during periods of monetary instability. More importantly, preparation is not just financial. Preparation is mental. Preparation is absolutely spiritual. Let's just look at a little history. When you start looking at moments like this in history, and I have 3 examples I wanted to share with you. I'm reminded of something that happened in Germany about 100 years ago, right? So back during the Weimar hyperinflation after World War I, the German government started printing money faster and faster. And at first, most people didn't really think much of it. Sound familiar? Life just kind of went on. Teachers kept their savings in the bank initially. Office workers kept their paychecks in the bank initially. Families saved money like they always had, even though they were printing out the wazoo. They didn't see the writing on the wall, but some did. There were some people who started noticing something wasn't right. They started noticing that prices were rising, that money was being printed faster and faster, and some people started quietly doing something different. They started buying tangible assets, primarily gold and silver, in coin fashion. Now, at the time, a lot of their neighbors might have thought they were crazy, right? Why would you trade perfectly good paper money for metal? But when the German mark finally collapsed, people were literally pushing entire wheelbarrows full of money just to buy bread. Entire life savings were wiped out. But the people who had stored some of their wealth in other tangible assets like gold and silver, they suddenly had something the paper money didn't. Real value. Something that still mattered when the currency didn't. A few silver coins could buy food for weeks. A handful of gold coins could buy entire houses from, different sellers who had become worthless. And you see the same pattern show up again and again throughout history. Take Argentina. Argentina has gone through multiple currency collapses over the last several decades. And because of that, many families there learned a lesson the hard way. They stopped trusting the currency. Instead, many of them began saving in things they couldn't be printed, or that couldn't be printed. They started saving in US dollars. Hey, I don't know about that one right now. They started saving in land, gold, silver. Because when governments can't print money, the safest things tend to be the things they cannot create out of thin air. Third example, many people did this, and maybe the most dramatic example was in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe had one of the worst hyperinflations the world has ever seen. Prices were doubling so fast that people had to rush to the store the moment they got paid, because by the next day, their money was worthless. Actually, at one point, the government printed $100 trillion bills. That's trillion with a T. I actually used to have one. People literally used the currency as wallpaper. But during that time, something interesting happened. Precious metals started circulating again in Zimbabwe. People began trading gold, flakes even, silver jewelry, small coins, because those metals still held value when the paper currency didn't. And that's something history shows us again and again. When currencies fail, people always go back to things that cannot be printed. Land, food, energy, and yes, precious metals like gold and like silver. Oh, Andrew, I am out of time. All right, here we go. Let's wrap this thing up. Let's land this thing. I want to say this to you. I'm not fearful of anything coming. And I think that anytime we are fearful of what's coming, it's just a clear indication that our eyes are not focused in the right place. But I believe that God does want us to prepare. I believe God does want us to be watchmen on the wall. I believe that God does want us to know the signs of the times. And I want to say this, the world is going to shake. Financial systems will change. Empires will rise. Empires will fall. Currencies, they come and go. But one thing never changes. Hebrews 13:8 says this, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. And I take such hope in that whenever everything around me or around you feels like it's just shaking and uncertain, you can cling to the one that is a rock, the firm foundation. That means when the world shifts, when the financial systems shake, when uncertainty rises, the solid rock does not move. And if your life has been built upon that rock, you don't have to live in fear. And that does not mean that we become lazy. The Bible actually praises preparation, right? In Proverbs 6:6-8, it says, "Go to the ant, you sluggard, consider its ways and be wise. It has no commander, no overseer or ruler, yet it stores its provisions in summer and gathers its food at harvest." And James tells us something powerful about faith in action. James 2:17 says this, "In the same way, faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead." So you do what you can. You prepare the best you know how. You take care of your family. You make wise decisions. And when you've done all you can, the Bible says something incredible. In Ephesians chapter 6, I believe it's verse 13, it says, "And after you have done everything, stand. Stand. Stand in faith, stand in truth, stand knowing that God covers what we cannot control, because the truth is the world may be entering a period of financial transformation. Systems change, governments change, currencies change, but the truth does not change. And if your life is built on the rock, the storm may come, but the foundation holds. The foundation holds." Hey, listen, we're out of time for today's show. There was two quick things I wanted to say at the very end. It reminded me of it whenever I saw James chapter 2, which will be our Bible study next week. I want to remind you to subscribe to our brand new weekly Bible study show called Beyond Borders. Just search Beyond Borders IGBY on any platform and subscribe. And also, if you're not currently a monthly partner for, a supporter of the work that we're doing here through IGBY, and you'd like to help us continue this mission, I want to ask you that you would become a partner. Just go to ZachDrewShow.com and click that bright orange donate button. You can also give to the Zach Drew Show, P.O. Box 797, Decatur, Illinois. We'd really like to get our monthly subscribers up. And I also want to just share a quick update with you. Next week, I am meeting with missionary Josh Hederman, who we partner with in Iquitos, Peru, as we continue planning the next phase of the church project there. We are hoping more funds come in. We don't have a new update. We have already raised just over $10,300 toward the dirt work, and we're getting closer to the amount needed to complete it. It's $16,500. So please keep praying for that project as we move forward. And honestly, I'm just really encouraged to see things continuing to come together there. That was a couple of quick updates I need to give at the end of the show. I am absolutely out of time, overtime actually. I'll see you all next week.